best vegetable for men. When we look at what men are mostly concerned with, whether they are young, middle-aged, or old, a lot of times it is that overall kind of testosterone to estrogen ratio. Now, I'm not going to go out there and say that a certain vegetable is going to increase testosterone or anything like that. What I am going to focus on is estrogen, and not estrogen as a whole, but the different kinds of estrogen. We need to expand our thought when we look at estrogen, because some estrogens are actually good and some estrogens are very bad. When it comes down to a male, we really have to be paying attention, because the estrogens are what can drive the aromatization of testosterone into more estrogen, sending us down this vicious cycle of just more and more estrogen and less testosterone. It's not necessarily about how do we increase our testosterone levels, it's more about how do we keep things in check and improve our estrogen ratios. Now, I'm not talking about testosterone to estrogen ratio, that's important too, but I'm talking about good estrogen to bad estrogen ratio. And this is exactly where sulfur-containing vegetables really do play a role. And even if you're not consuming sulfur-containing vegetables, possibly consuming things like indole-3-carbinol or Diindolylmethane, which you can find in stores, you can find in the supplement stores, but honestly, vegetable route is probably the best. Let's go ahead and break it down. After today's video, if you want to save 25% off your entire grocery order, you've got to check out Thrive Market. Seriously, like if you are trying to just make better choices and you're trying to also save some money, you've got to check them out. So what it is it's an online grocery store, but everything that they have there are products that they have vetted in terms of being better for you options. So it's not like going to your regular like Piggly Wiggly grocery store and finding whatever junk is in the aisles. It's really finding things that are good options for you, but then it gets delivered to your doorstep in a day or two. It's super easy, super convenient, but that link down below, since they're a sponsor on this channel, saves you 25% off your entire grocery order. That's 25% off your entire order plus a free gift, and then it gets delivered to your doorstep. So you save money there, plus you save money not having to go to the grocery store, plus you save your time not having to walk around the grocery store, plus you save your time not having to talk to Rick, your weird neighbor that you ran into at the grocery store. So that link is down below. Check them out after this video. Okay, so simply put, a sulfur-containing vegetable is going to be something like broccoli, something like cabbage, something like cauliflower, something like bok choy, something like brassica, anything kind of within that cruciferous category. I tend to lean towards broccoli and bok choy because the concentration of that is pretty high. But anyway, let's get into how this works because it's very important. There is something in these vegetables called glucosinolates. Okay, these glucosinolates are components that break down into indole-3-carbinol, which further breaks down into diindolylmethane. What diindolylmethane does, even though it's a very complicated sounding term, it's really just DIM, what DIM does is it metabolizes the bad estrogens so that we can excrete them and get rid of them. But it actually helps the good estrogens become stronger, thereby increasing the ratio of our good estrogen to bad estrogen. Now, it does this via a cool pathway. It does this by upregulating an enzyme in our liver. This enzyme is called CYP1A2, and it is the job of this enzyme to take the metabolism of estrogen and either expedite it or slow it down. So if that enzyme is upregulated, you're breaking down the estrogen faster. Now, additionally, it can downregulate another enzyme. It downregulates an enzyme called CYP-B1B. The enzyme isn't that important, but basically in terms of the name, but what this B1B does is it makes it so that stronger estrogen molecules become weaker, so that the CYP1A2 can therefore break them down better. So it's a pretty complicated sounding system, but estrogen is actually a very complicated molecule. It's a complicated hormone. So the long story short is that diindolylmethane increases the availability of what's called 2-hydroxyestrogen and decreases the availability of 1,6-hydroxyestrogen, the bad estrogen. The 2-hydroxyestrogen is a very good estrogen, and whether you are male or female, it is having cardioprotective effects, brain protective effects, neuroprotective effects, potential anti-inflammatory effects, and even effects that can be beneficial towards your appetite, beneficial towards your body composition. It is by and large a good estrogen. Estrogen gets thrown under the bus a lot. Estrogen itself is good. It provides some joint relief. It can actually help you so your joints don't feel so bad. It can help with hydration. It is literally a good thing, but it gets tossed into the ring along with 1,6-hydroxyestradiol, which in essence is almost a poison. We are supposed to have a small amount of it, but we need to be able to deal with it. And the liver has to go into hyperdrive to try to process it. So when we upregulate these enzymes by consuming these kinds of vegetables, it does help that process out. And again, you don't have to do the vegetables. I recommend you do because you get a benefit there, but you can take a few hundred milligrams of diindolylmethane or indole-3-carbinol. So let's go ahead and look at some interesting research surrounding this. There was a study that was published in the journal Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers and Prevention. This was cool because it looked at a supplement form of indole-3-carbinol, and what it did is it had subjects consume or go through placebo for 4 weeks as a run-in. Then they did 4 weeks of 400 milligrams IC3 and then 800 milligrams of IC3 for 4 weeks. At the end of this study, they found there was a pretty significant difference. There was a 4.1 times increase in CYP1A2 enzyme at the end of the intervention. Okay, this occurred in almost 94% of the subjects. So almost everyone had this huge increase in CYP1A2, ultimately leading to a better ratio of good estrogen to bad estrogen. Okay, pretty darn good news. The additional good news is that it actually halted at 400 milligrams. 800 milligram dose didn't improve over the 400 milligram dose, which is good news because that means if you're doing it in supplement form, you don't need to take all that much. More isn't better. Okay, and even in the vegetable form, more isn't better. Well, can you get the same effect from vegetables? Well, the same journal published a paper just to look at this. And they took a look at subjects that were consuming brassica. And they did a bunch of wild things, but the ultimate end result was that brassica, which is like a member of the cabbage kind of mustard family, they found that just a 10 gram, which is like nothing, increase. Each 10 gram increase led to a 0.08 improvement in the good estrogen to bad estrogen ratio. Not a 0.08% increase of X, but a 0.08 improvement in the ratio. Okay, so the ratio of 2-hydroxyestradiol to 1,6-hydroxyestradiol had improved just that much. Imagine if you had 3 100-gram servings of broccoli per day, or imagine if you had 4 tablespoons of sauerkraut throughout the day. You can see how this improves things dramatically, even from a vegetable side of things. So if you're trying to make the biggest impact with your hormones outside of, say, lifestyle, stress, sleep, vitamin D, sunlight, things like that, when you're coming down to a nutritional aspect of things, I'm still going to go out on a limb and say that vegetables are probably good. And I've been an advocate for cruciferous vegetables for a very long time because as far as male health goes, it probably is the most bang for the buck. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. I'll see you tomorrow.